Thank you all for coming to the Village of East Aurora Board Meeting for November 15th, 2021. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call attendance, please, Maureen?
Trustee Lizikas, Trustee Porter,
Here.
Trustee Kimmelhurt, Trustee Rosati,
Here.
Trustee Cameron,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Mayor Mercurio.
Present.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the village board meeting for November 1st, 2021?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second. Second by Marcia. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to approve the payment of abstract for 11/15/21 for voucher number 61562 to 61613 for a total of $781,911.06?
So moved.
Moved by Kristen, second by Tony. Further discussion? I had a question, Matt. It was like $7,000 in welding charges on there. For Get Her Done, I think was the company.
That was the removal of the old salt storage building.
Got it. And then they scrapped the metal too.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. All right, thank you all for coming out tonight. We are going to have our standard speakers and communications session first, before the public hearing. This is going to be for any issue that isn't going to be covered in a public hearing. So if you're here for the cannabis or for the poke yoke, then you're going to get your chance to speak in a minute, okay? Anything else? If you'd like to comment to the board, raise your hand, please. And when called on, come up to the microphone. Or a microphone can be brought to you and state your name and address and tell us what your issue is. Anything other than cannabis and the poke yoke? Nobody. All right. That ends our first speakers and communications. So our first public hearing, can I get a motion to consider the special use permit for the Poke Yoke Restaurant at 227 Main Street at 7:03 p.m.? Moved by Marcia, second. Second by Tony. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone from the public that would like to talk about the Poke Yoke Restaurant that's going to open on 227 Main Street? Anybody from the Poke Yoke here wants to give us a highlight? All right. So can I get a motion to close the public hearing on the poke yoke at 7:03 p.m.?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second by Marcia.
That was me.
Oh, by Kristen, sorry. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 3A is closed. Going to first official considerations, can I get a motion to approve the special use permit for the Poke Yoke Restaurant at 227 Main Street?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second by Marcia. Further discussion?
Mayor, may I? Behind you.
Yes, Lord.
That's above my pay grade. Everyone is, I did send a note to the board members and the Poke Yoke is well aware, and I've been coordinating with Liz. There is the matter of shed in the easement there, and everyone involved is aware of it. It is a condition of the special use permit that upon transfer of the ownership, when the new owners of the property and restaurant have it as the Poke Yoke, we're going to ask them to enter into an agreement with the village so that they can have that there. But if we ever need to get in there, they will take care of it. It's all written out. Actually, I proposed some language to Chris and he punched up a little bit and you have seen it. So that will be at a subsequent meeting when that ownership is transferred, but it is a condition of a special use permit. I just wanted to point it out. Thank you.
So they understand that they'll need to move it if we ever need
I
to.
got people shaking their heads in the back room. Yeah.
If we ever need to go in there, hopefully we don't.
Or you can just leave it there if we don't.
All right, and that's already written into the permit, correct? All right, any other discussion?
The one thing I was a little curious about was, I like the fact that the hours are the same roughly as Mikey D's. And Mikey D's at one point had an agreement with Misters about using the parking lot in the afternoon for employees to help balance the parking around the plaza and in the bowling alley. I'm just wondering whether the Poke Yoke crew are aware of that and if it's still in existence, only because it came up as part of the approval for Misters, which has very limited parking.
I will say that Mister's employees have not been utilizing that parking lot as was discussed. So they're finding parking elsewhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, any other discussion? So for the approval of the Poke Joke special use permit, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay, moving on back to public hearings. Public hearings 2, 5A. Can I get a motion to open a public hearing at 7:06 PM regarding a local law amending the village code, section 177, parks prohibiting smoking of any kind in village parks? Moved by Marcia, second.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the public hearing is open. Would anyone like to speak regarding prohibiting smoking of any kind in village parks? Thank you. You can come up to the mic, please. State your name and address. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Maureen, can we adjust that mic up?
Yes, just can pull that up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect, you're good. Could you stay there all night and just work the mic for us?
Do a good job.
Mark, 42 Fillmore. I don't think there should be any smoking of anything in any park.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
My name is Eric Apen, 461 Oakwood Avenue, and I am also against smoking in the parks. You know, I have young children, I have older children, and nothing is more annoying than people smoking, like, because it does waft into your children and all that. Plus, we also have to be concerned that if we open it up to smoking, we open it up to smoking. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right, can I get a motion at 7:08 PM to close the public hearing on local law amending the village code section 177?
So moved.
Moved by Kristen.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. More public hearing for smoking in public parks is closed. All right, so 7:09 PM, I think what we'll do is we'll put 5B and C together since we've already had public hearings on both and heard some discussion on those. So can I get a motion to open a public hearing at 7:09 PM regarding the local law for the village to opt out of having a retail dispensary selling cannabis within the village limits, as well as the local law for the village to opt out of having consumption sites for cannabis within the village limits? Moved by Marcia.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This public hearing for both of these issues is now open. We did ask you, appreciate you. Yeah, we appreciate you signing in. So we're gonna go through the list. If you didn't get a chance to sign in, let me know at the end, please, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Again, we're gonna ask everybody to be, civil and polite. This is local politics. We're all neighbors. You have 2 minutes, so keep it to 2 minutes, please. Make your salient points. you know, if you want to state your position at the beginning, so we can kind of understand where you're coming from, whether you're for or against dispensaries and consumption sites, or one or just the other. Maybe let us know at the beginning and then expand on your case.
I wanted to make an announcement that I was looking into opening a dispensary, but I've talked with my care coordinator and I've decided not to. So I will be moving on both of these.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, when called, please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and if you no longer want to comment, if there's a lot of redundancy, I'm sure the whole group would appreciate if we don't say the same thing, you know, over the next 2.5 hours. So you can decline your opportunity to speak if you so choose. All right, number 1, Brad Robbins, 801 Martin.
I'm vaccinated. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees and fellow residents. My name is Brad Robbins of 801 Martin Drive, and I'm here to voice my strong support for the village board maintaining their decision not to opt out of the state's licensing program for both cannabis dispensaries and consumption sites. The issue at hand here is not the legality, morality, or personal consumption of cannabis in East Aurora. These matters are largely settled by law in New York State and not applicable to the licensure process. Cannabis is and will continue to be legally consumed in the village by your friends, neighbors, colleagues, and community leaders, who I assure you are good people, in spite of and perhaps even because of their cannabis use. As a local owner of 2 small businesses, loving parent, spouse, someone involved in the community, and someone who was, up until last March, technically a criminal, I can't tell you how much of a relief it's been to be able to come out as a regular medicinal and recreational user of cannabis. To be able to simply acknowledge without fear of reprisal the medicine that has helped me manage my entire adult life has been an incredible improvement to my quality of life. And I think that's a point that's been largely lost in our endless discussions of tax revenue and attracting tourist dollars. Simply put, cannabis is a legal product with myriad medicinal and recreational benefits that many of our village's residents want and enjoy for a variety of reasons. If our government is truly by and for the people, then who is the board to ignore the obvious demand for such a safe and legal product? One of the things that made my wife and I fall in love with our village was the compact and easily walkable nature of East Aurora. We can leisurely stroll or ride our bikes for almost any of our family's needs, except the vital medicine that has helped me to keep my anxiety under control during the extremely stressful few years we've had. To add cannabis to the list of products we purchase from local small businesses, many owned by members of our community, would present yet another market improvement in quality of life for me and many other village residents. I think a lot of the opponents are sort of missing out on the fact that this is not a movement driven by dark and murky outside interests looking to make a quick buck. It's by people who are from the village and who wish the best for everyone here. Once more, the issue here is not whether it should be legal. We've already settled that in the state. Opting out of our licensure would just simply remove the opportunity to even make decisions based on whether or not we should allow entrepreneurs to invest in our community. I urge you all to continue that. Vote once more not to opt out. Thanks.
Number 2, Don Vidler.
Don Vidler, 115 Geneva Road, and speaking more for Vidler's 5 and 10 as a business. Good evening, everybody. For the record, yeah, I'm just the opposite, completely opposed to the lounge. I'm not sure about the dispensaries yet. I don't know enough about it. But the lounge, I think you're just opening yourself up to a can of worms. Like many people, I didn't come to the first meeting. I just assumed the board would kind of table it. My understanding is you've got to opt in by the end of December, but you can, or opt out, I'm sorry, but you've got to opt in. You can do it in the future. And I don't see why there's such a rush to do this. From what I've seen, the regulations, the taxation, the licensing, they don't even know what's going to happen yet with that. The Office of Cannabis Management of New York State, they've been very slow on guidance. And the big issue for me is most of the towns around us this isn't right up to date, but as far as I read recently, Orchard Park has said or will say no to both. West Seneca said no to the lounge, think they're going to okay the dispensary. Marilla's said no to both, or Wales has said no to both. Holland, I'm not sure about. But right away, I'm thinking, these people, if East Aurora is the only one in their immediate radius, they're not going to drive there, walk their bike, walk here, ride a bike. They're going to drive to East Aurora. And then the police don't even know yet how they can do this. There's no impairment test for marijuana that I know of right now. They're trying to figure that out. And I think it's a big can of worms. Right now, I can tell you in terms of the image of East Aurora, I get every single week in the store, I'm not exaggerating, and it's not a lot, but 2 or 3 people, men, women, older, younger, come in with a can of beer, a Go Cup with a cocktail. And we say politely, please, you can't do that. Oh, no, you can. It's allowed in East Aurora. It's legal. I said, well, it is in the public areas, but not in private businesses. I can see getting to that same thing with people if it's legal. They're just going to walk in, whether they're smoking the joint, come into the place, or they already have, then you have that argument with them. I just think that you've got time. Just be patient about this. And I also think, the image everyone talks about of East Aurora, we have a wonderful school system, justifiably so. It's a family-friendly, walkable village. We talk about it a lot. And my image of East Aurora isn't having lounges on Main Street. And that's where they're going to go. They're going to be on Main Street where the traffic is, the foot traffic where the business is. And I think you're just setting up a bad image and a bad message. So thank you very much. And I'm opposed to the lounges, definitely.
I have Mark Mann, number 3. Mark Mann.
Hi, I'm Mark Mann. I live on Emery Road, but I got property over here on Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm dead set against this. I don't think it should be in town. This lounge thing, it's an opium den, lack of a better phrase. But bear with me for a minute. Remember last week, that guy got hit in front of Pasquale's? Right, you must have done a field sobriety test on this guy and everything, standard operating procedure. Did you test him for drugs? There's no way to test for drugs. That's what's missing with this whole thing. People are going to get all toked up, drive around town, somebody's going to get hurt, possibly killed, and there's no way to test it for that. I mean, you got all slurred speech and glassy eyes and everything like that. Well, I work 20 hours a day. I'm like that all the time. You guys really got to put some thought in this. So again, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. And like the last guy said, it'll be around next year. Revisit this thing in a year or two when the rest of the state can figure out how to control this thing, because without controls, it's going to go rampant. Thank you.
Carlos Santos, please. Carlos?
Good evening. My name is Carlos Santos. I'm at 182 Oakwood Avenue. I've spoken at the past few meetings. I've emailed the board a couple times. I provided resources, hard facts, and statistics that show the benefits of what a retail dispensary brings to the area. In addition to that, as I've made public, I am a potential licensee for a retail dispensary. It was never my intention to open one in the town, but I still feel that having readily accessible cannabis is very important to people. I think that it's been ostracized. People have been made to feel lesser because they use this medicine, something that has been deemed a essential business during this pandemic. And people have been made to feel lesser that they use it to treat a multitude of issues, from anxiety to actual physical issues. It's something people use. And what I've heard the past couple of times, people have said, we don't know what's going to happen. Just, wait it out. We do know, though, the MRTA has laid out the foundation of how retail cannabis will be sold in areas. It's very thorough. It goes into full detail. It explains how we can advertise products, what our limitations are. That process is done. Whether people feel that they are pro cannabis or against it, that doesn't change anything. The state made that decision. It's legal. It's here to stay. Federal legalization is around the corner. And if you want to, say, oh, we'll sit and wait, you're depriving someone who does want to open a dispensary here that foothold into a multi-billion-dollar market, that New York is going to be the capital of the country on the East Coast for cannabis. At a lot of the events that we do for the cannabis business building, they say that California brought cannabis to the country and New York's going to bring it to the world. And I think that if East Aurora decides to opt out on that, you're depriving your citizens of easily accessible cannabis, and you're allowing profits to go to other areas. Now, to the smoking consumption lounge, I think that needs to be very clear that that's two separate things. And if people are unsure about that, I get that. That's a more of a foreign concept. And to that argument, though, I will say it with the way the law is, you can smoke in public anywhere. That you're in parks, if we can't do that, but anywhere else, if you have a lounge, at least it's a centralized place where people can smoke. To that, I will not go on much further, but I do think that I hope facts and stats went out over misplaced fear. All right, thank you.
Rachel Francis, please.
Thank you. Thank you for listening again. I wanted to clarify why I think there was no reaction before. The advertiser's report on September 16th said that the village board was preparing to opt out. I read that. I thought, okay, that makes sense. Okay. I'll quote, until more is known about the impacts of allowing cannabis dispensary and consumption sites in a community, the village of East Aurora is moving forward with plans to block them. Responsible, cautious, predictable. But then 2 weeks later, October 20th, well, a month later, on listening to profiteers pushing the pro-pot movement, the board seemingly capriciously voted to opt in. And that's a lesson to me. I learned my lesson. If there's an important issue with long-lasting potential negative impacts on the village, attend the hearing. So please hear me out. I'm a person who votes every single time. I've lived in East Aurora for 40 years. I've seen many changes. Number one, yes, pot is legal. And it seems to me as if everyone who wants pot is able to get it. I think that's an important point. Number two, we should not be letting those who are hoping to profit from an East Aurora pot empire to sway our votes. That's a very, very questionable conflict of interest. Number three, pro-pot lobbies' estimates of potential pot revenue are vastly overrated, according to reports from Colorado's example. Police costs and increased need for social support eat up their community's tax benefits. Please put that possibility into your brains. Number four, many communities in Colorado are now changing their tune on welcoming pot dispensaries because of the above issues. Number five, I do not want to live in a town where the motto could be East Aurora, center of intoxication. I do not want to live in a town where intoxication is celebrated. And I'll tell you why I'm biased. I was orphaned 40 years ago by a drunk driver. So it's been kind of a hot issue on my radar. I don't want people driving around drunk or high. There's so many contentious and divisive issues today, and I was hoping to strike a tone of a win-win. If we can win-win, I think by waiting. All right, it's not closing the door. I think do the prudent thing tonight and opt out for now. Let's wait and get more information. Don't be pushed into a radical decision by those who say it is inevitable. Thank you for listening.
Sue Galbraith, please. Number 6, Sue Galbraith.
You can take it down.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to start out saying I've been in the hospital for the last few days with my 40-year-old mom. It's very rough shape, so I'm going to try to just get through this, okay? I've lived in the village for almost 30 years. I have spoken twice on this issue. I believe that we should opt in. I still believe we should opt in. I've had medical for 3 years just to be able to walk to a dispensary. There's never this much commotion when someone wants to open a new alcohol store in Aurora, even though it's addictive, causes more violence, causes more sickness, causes more accidents. village has made being a free haven for alcohol part of its image, what with permitting open containers and the never-ending string of bars and breweries. With that, all the sickness, car crashes, domestic violence that comes with it, is tolerated, then surely a place for people to fight cannabis won't. I am for opting in. At this point in time, I don't really have. anything I actually haven't allowed. Thank you for your
Thank you. Can I have Joe Blind, please. Joseph Blind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, trustees, for giving this opportunity to us once again with this public hearing. I kind of suspected you were going to limit me to 2 minutes, so I sketched out a few points that will only take me 2 minutes. I would have probably been up here for about 10 minutes. Not good. But anyway, I was kind of amused too by the people who came up and were opposed to smoking in the parks. If we let this marijuana thing, if you agree to opt in again, in a couple of years, we may have people come in. Now, marijuana, to opt in or out. A few weeks ago, the board opted in with very little input from residents. During the few weeks between opting in and now, much activity in the village regarding this decision. And the decision of the people, essentially, and I talked to a lot of people, was do not opt in at this time. Take it easy. A little more. See what happens in other places. I mean, you know, we're the only, we opted right in without, as far as I know, too much consideration. I'm sure you got in touch with people and you decided to do what you did. But everybody around us, all communities around us have opted out. That should tell us something, and we should take it easy, look it over a little more, and put it off for a while. Our village is, I believe, strongly against bringing dispensaries and especially consumption sites into East Aurora. East Aurora does not need the business nor the taxes. Medical marijuana, fine, but it can be obtained in other ways. Think of our kids, our children. They should not be exposed to this stuff, and they will be. We don't need this in East Aurora. Our outstanding police chief, Chief Krieger, has been and is opposed to both options with good reason, and they were mentioned before. As we all know, East Aurora is a wonderful, wonderful place to live.
Thank you.
Does anyone think it would be a better place to live with this drug in our midst? Most people here this evening
sir,
and those at
can you
home
wrap it up, please?
are foursquare against. It is my considered opinion and my advice to the board, reverse your previous decision and opt out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Caitlin Fitzgibbon, number 8, Caitlin.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Fitzgibbon. I live at 182 Oakwood. I'll just leave that. I've spoken in front of you all before, so I'll keep it short, and I've emailed you as well. I am in favor of opting in or not opting out as far as dispensaries go. With respect to consumption sites, I understand the concerns, and I could take it or leave it. I just will reiterate the point that it could cut down on public smoking. With respect to having dispensaries in town, I think that it is very important to have local medicine available to the citizens. To the points about drunk driving, people will be driving less. These are here and they can walk. And the possibility of people driving high is not going to change if there's a dispensary here. And that's unfortunate. I don't think that's a good thing. However, we will have to address this issue one way or another. It is legal, it will be sold in neighboring towns. And again, be an increase.
Thank you. Number 9, Julie Fisher. Julie?
Thank you, members, for your willingness to forum. I am strongly opposed to allowing dispensaries and consumption sites in the village. I urge you to reconsider your vote. These businesses are not a good fit. Some have called us small-minded, but I prefer community-minded. The past decade, my husband and I have coached soccer team, served on 2 village committees, and lovingly restored our home to its former glory. Other folks here serve their churches, their PTOs, and veterans organizations. Think about who you might be persuading from calling for a home. We are child-minded. I've taught science and health for over 20 years, as my husband, who's also a registered nurse. We have taught over 5,000 students at that time. You can attest that the common denominator for dropouts is students who go to alternative schools is drug use. Saying that they are already doing it is not good enough, not a good argument. Not be actively promoting easier access to drugs for our teens and young adults. We are safety-minded. Families and children's walk these streets to get to Parkdale, the middle school, the Boys and Girls Club, the movie theater, and so on. Why do you want to put them at risk? A Tonawanda man was discharged with particular manslaughter, driving while illegal impaired, because he killed a bicyclist while high. Is that what you want in our town? These businesses benefit only those people who stand a profit by exploiting the most vulnerable in the community. Marijuana is not the same as alcohol. It does not have calories, nor does it increase the flavor profile of cuisine. It is used primarily for cognitive impairment. Any one of us can cherry pick statistics to make them work for our favor. While boil it down, these businesses are just not right for our historic, family-oriented community. You will need to make a tough decision that will make some people unhappy. With whom will you align? Parents, children, police, homeowners, concerned business owners, or an industry built on questionable legality for sole purpose, profit over community. I hope that you choose people over profit.
Thank you. Try it out.
We did just have some people walk in. If you want, there is more room at the other room and it's broadcasted. You can hear everything being said.
Yes, and if you're, wait, someone's shaking their head back there.
Oh, you can just change the microphone.
Please.
There are a few more seats up here too, if anybody wants to come to the front.
Right, number 10, Ashley Curry.
Good evening, board, residents. I am pro East Aurora opting in for the dispensaries.
From one end to the other. So bear with me, please. And thank you for having other residents for sharing such
personal group though, with how medical marijuana and the accessibility to marijuana supports your ability to thrive, battle things that can be challenging for you. That's a big gift to share with a room full of strangers, especially one that's divided. I grew up in this village, almost all of my life. June address, 124. You signed up, you're fine. Go talk right into the microphone. I am a child of this village. I am a child who was raised, held, brilliantly educated by this village, fully aware that marijuana exists, that adults use it and have a good time, and that I can walk down the street without people forcibly shoving drugs in my face. In fact, it's my decision. I personally don't use it, but I'm all for those to have access to it. I like to bear in mind that while everybody enjoys this tight-knit community and this beautiful walkable village, for a lot of our surrounding areas, we are the big city. We are where they come to. So places like Wales or Holland opting out where there aren't really a ton of stores, we are their stores. They also consider our village very much their village, and we'll give access to each other. We also give access to a large surrounding population that to also think about outside of just our bubble. That's it for me. Thank you. And I know you've all heard from everybody because we see you out about town and a bunch of years where we find you. So I appreciate the additional time.
I can hear it. I can hear it come right back at me. Can you hear me in this one? This isn't the one that was here before.
All right, number 11, Rod Simeon.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, thank you. November 10th, I delivered this to your office, a report from the state of Colorado. As someone mentioned, in 2013, Colorado licensed marijuana for legalization for recreation. So to get away from the emotional things, let me quote some statistics that are outlined in there. Marijuana-related traffic deaths increased 151%. Marijuana-related ER visits, 52%, and hospitalizations went up 148%. Colorado marijuana usage, and this is age 12 and up, hear me, 12 and up, rose to third in the United States, 85% higher than the national average. Since 2013, violent crimes increased 18.6%, and property crimes increased 8.3% statewide. 20% of traffic impaired arrests involve marijuana. Of that total, 17% were totally marijuana related, and 83% were a combination of marijuana, other drugs, and alcohol. 69% of self-identified marijuana users admitted driving after consumption. 57% of identified users admitted to driving within 2 hours. A surprising statistic, 65% of the local jurisdictions ban marijuana usage. So the statistics I'm quoted you is based on 35% approval in state of Colorado. One last item, if you're thinking of a windfall profit-wise, in 2017, marijuana tax revenue represented 0.9%. of the budget. Please vote this down. Let's review it down the road. And one other suggestion, put it up for a vote for the 6,000 village residents. Thank you.
Number 12, Beth Fellendorf, please.
Hello there, I'm Beth Fellendorf. I live at 2696 Blakely Road. And I'm here speaking in favor of dispensaries. In particular, I'm certain that the state of New York will highly regulate and strenuously regulate dispensaries and consumption lounges in the way that they regulate liquor stores and bars right now. I do not believe that opting in is a radical thing to do at all. That is all.
Number 13, Catherine Weiger.
Hello, Village Board. I'd like to note that I am not associated with any organizations. I fully support the board in their decision to not opt out of dispensaries. Let's reduce government control and let the people in this community make their own decisions. Let them buy a legal product here in our village. Let adults be adults and make adult decisions. Please don't tread on our right to purchase a legal substance in our community. Please don't tread on our right to open a retail establishment that is legal in New York State, especially when the village has so many vacant storefronts. There are many parents who have concerns about cannabis and their children. Having a dispensary will greatly reduce the chances of street drugs, which could be laced with things like fentanyl. We already know cannabis will be extremely regulated. These dispensaries will not take any chances to lose their licenses. Getting caught selling to minors would be a death sentence to their establishments. Just like alcohol, if parents don't keep cannabis away from their children or teach them responsibilities, that's on the parents. Knowledge and education are key. We should not restrict the sale of a legal substance to adults because some people have children. Cannabis has been around a long time. Our police department should be well-versed in how to handle people under the influence of cannabis. Let's back the blue by funding them with this tax revenue. Let's back the blue by supporting their officers getting the proper training they need and deserve. The drug recognition training should be something we all encourage and want for our police force. The majority of people will enjoy responsibly, similar to alcohol. It would be my hope that our police force has the best training available to handle people under the influence of any substance. If we opt out, the town of Orchard Park, Hamburg, or West Seneca will get our hard-earned money towards their taxes, being the closest municipalities that will not be opting out. The board has ample time to reevaluate zoning and signage. I have full confidence in this village board that they will ensure the location of a dispensary will be well-suited and fits within the village aesthetics. Dispensaries are not a cheap investment. The current understanding is that licenses from New York State could cost around $200,000, plus the cost for their product, procuring a storefront, renovations, and staffing. The Cannabis Control Board will review the license applications and look for things such as increased noise, safety concerns, and if the applicant has any past violations. My husband is an Afghanistan and Iraq War veteran who has seen firsthand how cannabis can help with PTSD and physical pain. We should not force our veterans to leave their communities where they feel safe to purchase a legal substance. I got one more paragraph. You were elected because we trust you to make the best decisions for our village. Please do not make these choices based on personal prejudices and fired up emotions, but rather on the facts and further growth and opportunity for our community. You're able to allow residents to choose to spend their money here in our village at a facility on our tax roll. Thank you.
Number 14, Justine Naderney. How close was that?
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, Justine Attorney. I live at 246 Glebe Ave. I bought a house in East Aurora in the village a year ago. I'm a Canadian citizen, but I'm also American. So being a dual citizen, I can see, having my experience being in Canada, cannabis is legal, has it changed the way people live on a day-to-day basis? Not really. Does it provide more regulation for cleaner product, safer product for people who are actually using it because it's medicine? Yes. Cannabis is legal, as we all know. And right now, as the government of East Aurora, you have a job to do for us. As the state of New York is saying, it's now up to you. right? So it's up to you guys, the hours of operation, the zoning. These are difficult questions that we employ you to answer for us. We give you guys, we're giving you our trust. If it's not you in front of me who are going to make these decisions, we are the future generations of cannabis users. I mean, this is not going to end here. Right now, you have an opportunity to make an impact on the future. Let's allow it so that we can start building a case for safe consumption, for education, for providing the consumer with the right products, the right time. Again, I'm for cannabis dispensaries. I believe that we have an opportunity here to make a mark on the future. Let's not pass the buck down anymore. This is for creating a future we can all stand by, not saying, let's deal with it later. Let's deal with this right now. And let's make an impact on the people of this town. Thank you.
Dave Simeon, please. Dave Simeon.
Good evening. I'm going to attempt to repackage my previous two statements. So, as we all know, it's been stated many times, marijuana is legal in the state of New York. So it's going to be in the streets. It's going to be in our houses. And let's be honest, it's going to be in our schools, which isn't good. We don't like that, but it's going to be there. So, opting out of a dispensary is, really all it's going to do is going to be a slight inconvenience for those that want to get it. And they're going to go spend all of their money somewhere else. And you're really just going to be saying no to tens of thousands of dollars of revenue per year. For the record, I am in favor of dispensaries. Consumption lounges, I'm actually a little bit on the fence about. I think there could be some problems there, but thank you.
Patrick Blizniak.
Hi, thank you. I'm of the opinion that marijuana is a gateway drug. I'm also in favor of allowing dispensaries in our town. Now, that may seem like a contradiction. It's not. As someone who spent the early part of my 20s battling a horrific addiction to opiates and other hard narcotics, I saw firsthand how hard or how easy it is to start with marijuana and move your way on to harder drugs. And that was because I was buying marijuana on the black market. And those same people that were selling me marijuana were offering me pills and cocaine, etc. I strongly urge the board to continue with their decision as someone that has gone through the worst part of what I think a lot of people are afraid of about this. And maybe they're not understanding that what they're afraid of, that we have a potential to make a difference in. We can slow down. I'm not naive enough to think that we're going to stop the opiate epidemic because of a dispensary in the village of East Aurora. But if it stops one single person from being offered harder drugs on the black market, right there, in my humble opinion, it was worth it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Heather Alessi, number 17. Heather.
I'm short.
It's fine.
Good evening. I'm Heather Alessi, 508 Gerard Avenue. I'd like to echo what Patrick just said. Although I did not have the experiences that he had, I've raised 3 children in East Aurora. I would prefer that if an adult were to need access to marijuana, that it be done in a regulated environment, and that would be with a dispensary. I would prefer that it be done that way and not be treated as a street drug. So that's my opinion on that. When it comes to consumption lounges, I am completely against those. As Shane Krieger has stated, there is no way to check impairment of anyone that is leaving these consumption lounges. And until we have the proper drug recognition for that, I am completely against consumption lounges in the village of East Aurora. Thank you.
Mark Georgian, Mark.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing, everybody. It won't make much of a difference to me because I have a security clearance with the Department of Defense and I can't use it anyway. I moved to East Aurora 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. Best move I ever made. I love this place. I was on the fence about both issues until I did some research on one and just thought about the other. I'm against lounges because you got to get there and you got to get back. Some percentage of people are going to drive. That I can't justify that. Dispensary, I think dispensary is good for a number of reasons. One, it would get rid of a source of laced marijuana. Marijuana can be laced with PCP, fentanyl. It isn't as prevalent as they say, but it doesn't take too many to kill someone. Jobs would be a benefit. I've heard some previous folks talk and I have different information. I've been able to find reports on both sides of everything that's been said tonight, pretty much, except for one, reduction in opioid overdoses of about 7% in states that have approved the use of cannabis. So there is some benefit to it. It will increase likely the use of marijuana by a few percent in 12 to 17-year-olds. The Cato Institute says it does not substantially increase crime. Another difference from what we heard before. Little or no effect on traffic accidents or fatalities. Nationwide, we can expect about 321,000 jobs. Tax revenue in Colorado is $387 million in 2020. That's from the state of Colorado. Use of workman's compensation claims dropped about 20% in states that have that. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Wilson Curry, please. 19.
Well, my name is my name is Wilson Curry. I live out on Sweet Road, and just want to tell all you board members, I may have smoked marijuana in my life, but I didn't exhale. I've learned a couple things tonight. One important thing is that we do live in a country where everybody can express their opinion, not fight with each other. And that's pretty cool. So I appreciate that a great deal. Second thing I learned is I'm not going to be buying any spleefed biddlers in a while. And most importantly is we're going to look back about 10 years from now, those of us that are alive, and what are we going to think about this? I'm from the 60s, but I've lived in East Aurora since 1955. Surprisingly, I don't really have an opinion on this. I think it's a very difficult decision for this board and for Chief Krieger. I'm not sure about Superintendent Matthew, but that being said is that I think it's a very difficult thing and and it's easy. These people have all been very articulate this evening and have voiced their opinion. So I sympathize with you. I don't really have an opinion. It's clear and apparent. I don't take a lot of things seriously anyway, but the very best to you. You're all good people. I've known you a long, long time, most of you, and can't wait to hear what everybody else has to say, but good luck with this one.
Logan Flipsky, Logan?
Good afternoon. My name is Logan Flipsky, 542 Oakwood Avenue. And I'd like to say that cannabis will help my grandmother and my uncle be able to travel to here instead of going out to Buffalo to get their medicine. And it would help generate a lot of more jobs. And it would also help curb the amount of people drinking due to the open container law that we have here. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. Number 21, David Hadley, please.
David Hadley, 6975 Land Road. I don't live in the town of Aurora or East Aurora. I live in South Wales. But you're charged with public safety. I don't want to come to this town and risk the chance of somebody smashing into me, smashing into my family, high on pot. I also don't want to walk down the town here to various businesses and possibly get a contact high from somebody smoking pot on this side of the street. There's already been a fatality in Western New York due to somebody high on pot. The dangling of the state with tax money in front of you it isn't enough reason to say yes and public safety be damned. The other red flag in the room is the state allows you in, but it will not allow you out. Why won't it let you out if you decide down the road that something ain't kosher? There's a reason they don't want to let you out. What is it? I like coming to this town and feel safe coming to this town for businesses with various appointments. I strongly hope you guys change your mind and opt out of everything. There's statistics, both sides conflating the issue. On top of that, there's medical marijuana issue, I think is being conflated with the pot side of things. People can get medical marijuana wherever they want. The other side of it is the pot that's going to get you high. The medical marijuana won't get you high. And they're conflating the issue. You can still get the medical marijuana. It's the other side of things where the THC is several times higher than what it used to be years past. The addiction rate is several times higher than what it used to be because of this. I'm hoping you guys do the right thing. Doing the right thing isn't always cheap and it isn't always easy to do. Thank you very much.
Number 22, Thomas Hagner. Number 22, Thomas Hagner.
Good evening, Thomas Hagner, 542 Fillmore Avenue, East Aurora. I've been a village resident for 40 years. I won't belabor the points that I emailed to the village board and submitted a letter to the editor of the East Aurora Advertiser. I guess my overall point is you can opt out now. If it becomes a great and wonderful thing, you opt back in. Once you opt in, you're stuck. Period. End of discussion. Thank you very much.
Mike, is it Iliand? Number 23, 28 North Grove Street. Sorry, Mike, I'm having trouble reading that. How do you say that?
Idland, Mike Idland.
Idland, thank you.
Can everybody hear in the back?
Barely here in the
front. Well, could you move the mic to closer to yourself? Yeah.
Do my best to speak up.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
All right.
So yeah, my name's Mike Idlin. I live at 28 North Grove Street. I have two daughters, 8 and 10 years old. My wife and I moved to East Aurora 12 years ago, like a lot of people, because we felt that it was the ideal place to raise children. Wonderful schools and amazing character of the village, right? Mom and pop shops, the culture of it, the ambiance, the general family-friendly aesthetic. Most of which was made possible in large part by the beautiful vision of this board. All of which, to me, is at risk right now with the decision you folks have made. I want us to consider for a moment the way that this will impact the daily rhythms and patterns of our village, day to day and during the day. So there have been plenty of comparisons to alcohol made here tonight, which are fair. Right. And every week we can read in the advertiser about DWIs, et cetera, without fail. Most of which, it seems to me, happen later in the evening, late at night. I believe strongly that we're going to bring in a similar component during the day, these dispensaries with these lounges. Okay. It's an adjacent issue that we will not be able to shield our children from in the way that they're shielded from what goes on in alcohol-related incidents in town because they're in bed, essentially. Instead, when I'm walking my kids around Main Street, around the general area, they'll be exposed to those lounges and what comes out of them, what's around them, okay? Worse, when we're riding our bikes together, which we do all the time, there is a guaranteed flow of people high behind the wheel. That's inarguable. The consequences to that are obvious and they'll be tragic. And I feel strongly that this is the wrong decision for our village. And for what it's worth, I'll strongly consider moving my family to one of the many other towns that had the good sense to pass on this idea. Thank you.
Patrick Klink, Blakely.
Hi, I'm in favor of the board sticking with the original decision to allow dispensaries and smoking lounges. And I don't have a lot to add to what some other people have said. I think they've made very good points for it. I did come hoping to hear reasons for changing my mind, and I really haven't heard that yet. And I just like to point out that, whether or not we have legal dispensaries in East Aurora, people will be smoking pot, and all the complications or problems that arise from that will exist anyway. So I think it's better to have a regulated industry and something that's under control rather than a black market that's going to be there anyway. Thank you.
25, Richard Cox, number 25. Richard.
Good evening, board, mayor, chief, everybody who came in attendance and spends their time on taking care of village legislation. A lot of great points here tonight. I live at 288 Perry with my wife and my 11-year-old daughter. My wife grew up in the village. I think between her family and her 6 siblings, they must have probably about 200 years of living in the village. That list goes on and on. I am very much against having dispensaries or lounges in the village. Mayor asked that we try to make that point up first, but I would like to take the 2 minutes that I'm allowed just to say a few things. Growing up as a child and a young man, I never really grasped what my father did for a living. I knew his title, I knew where he worked, that he published stuff, that he and my mom would frequently have visitors over for dinner. But I never really paid attention to the content of what he did or why he was so passionate about it. My father retired at about age 70 as professor emeritus from UB after 35 years of teaching in the political science department. More specifically, he taught his students and graduate students about the fundamentals of governments, how they were formed, and why the US and tiny villages like East Aurora still have the best form of government in the world for its citizens to be able to speak to their elected representatives
about concerns of their community and that the ability to do this is truly one of our greatest gifts and rights. That's why we are here tonight. I think the real ask here is that the board simply allow the village residents, all or most of them, 6,000, I believe is the current count, not a handful, not just a few interested parties, not a pro-marijuana lobbying group from outside the village or inside the village, just the time to discuss the issues, be fully informed and talk amongst ourselves about the possible impacts of allowing the dispensaries and lounges before they're here. A fair discussion of this topic would be in a public forum where both sides can speak their mind and in the best interest of our community, where many taxpayers are raising children and they simply don't want these entities in our village. I hope the board listens to those people as well. A lot of the talk we've heard is about the fact that New York State has made recreational marijuana legal. So now it's supposed to be in every community because our state government has said so. Let's not so quickly forget that former New York State Governor, Mr. Cuomo, held on to this legislation and mostly ignored it until he was being criminally investigated by the state attorney general. Shortly before he resigned his office, under extreme public and legal pressure, he magically had a change of heart and let it become law. This is kind of a summary, but that's what happened.
Sir, I need you to wrap it up.
Sure. I am honestly not sure how the individual trustees feel about this issue. I've heard from a couple. One has told me he does believe he wants to do what the community wants, not what he wants, and I appreciate that. My final comment, this will take 20 seconds. The town of Orchard Park, by legal default, I believe, not because their community chose it. Very important distinction. Opted in for both laws. Wouldn't common sense dictate that we watch our neighbors to the west, see how these laws impact their community before we ignorantly force them onto our own village? It's a perfect way to more safely observe how a similar-minded community will react to the increased traffic, increased crime, the inevitable marijuana black market, unwanted visitors in town strictly to purchase or consume marijuana and then drive around high. We've heard all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Number 26, Susie Jackson. Susie Jackson.
Susie Jackson, 1257 Warren Drive. And had I brought my notes, Wilson, I would have asked you to read them for me. You do a good job. But I concur with Wilson that I think this is a really hard decision for this board. I wasn't at the original public hearing. I came to the second one, and some things were said, and I thought, well, I'll kind of look into that, kind of see what's going on. One was that property values would go up if dispensaries were allowed. And I went, huh. So I researched it, and depending on what research you look at, if it's from Marijuana Planet, your property values go up. But then I saw something from a board of realtors, which would want property values to go up because they're realtors. And it was 8% went up, 8% went down, and the rest kind of stayed the same. So when the board is looking for reasons to say yay or nay, I think it's really important to look at the research and see where it's coming from, and try to take an unbiased view on that. There was also a comment made that we would be progressive if we allowed this in our village. And I really think that years ago, this village was extremely progressive when they put forth legislation for the mid-Main district, which allowed for our Main Street to stay as it is, which allowed for houses not to be torn down, so that that type of environment became like really a wonderful fabric for this village. And the reason why so many people want to live here, so many people pay a premium. Our housing values are going up regardless of whether we have dispensaries or not. But to me, the idea of progressive is that we had people on this board that had the foresight to look to the future and to see what would be best as time went on. I strongly urge this village board to take their time, opt out for now, see what's going on in the other towns that have opted in. Keep in mind, West Seneca, Hamburg, Orchard Park, much larger than the village of East Aurora. There will be an impact if we have dispensaries. People can
Ma'am, you have
always
to wrap
get,
it up.
sure, people can always get their marijuana at the same place they're getting it now. And also one more thing, there was a really interesting documentary a few years ago called Murder Mountain. And it had to do with the pot growing in the Northwest. And there was all this legislation, they were going to legalize it all. And what ended up happening is that the price of legalization for these pot growers was too cost prohibitive. So everybody stayed on the black market. Our kids in the village will still get their pot wherever they're getting it now. They won't be able to get it from dispensaries. And if you need medical marijuana, you won't be getting it at the recreational dispensary in town. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Eric Aiken. Eric?
Mayor, trustees, thank you very much for letting me speak. Full disclosure, my personal beliefs. So I'm going to come up with 3 different points. My first point is I personally believe it would be a huge mistake for our village to opt in to cannabis dispensaries and lounges. I'm especially against normalizing the use of recreational drugs in our village. Items like cannabis gummies, vaping products that will be for sale at these businesses are partly designed to appeal to our young adults and children, and again, normalize cannabis products. Couple this with the walkability of East Aurora. It's compact 2.5 square mile area where churches, schools, and parks are close to village shops. On-site consumption lounges, as was said before, pose a unique threat to law enforcement and require on-site consumers of their products to seek transportation to and from the site. With current staffing and training, law enforcement at present would have great difficulty meeting the new risk to public safety. Let's keep in mind too that Chief Police Krieger has maintained his opposition to the opting in to these entities. Number 2, take the prudent approach. The prudent approach to this issue is without a doubt to opt out. The village can always opt in at a later time. However, as it was said before, if we opt in, we can never opt out. Gotta love New York, right? The specific detail of this new 128-page law, they're still being scrutinized. And the New York State Cannabis website, which I checked again today, which we hope will eventually provide a more user-friendly breakdown of the new law, is still under construction. Again, the law, by the way, is 128 single-spaced pages. I don't know if anybody's looked at it. It's crazy. It's good to remember, all of us, that there is almost always a difference in how a law reads on paper and how it actually works when it goes live. Opting out means we'll have time to thoroughly study the law's implementation, and in the future, our community can make a thoughtful, deliberate decision to remain opted out or look to opt in. Also, should we decide in the future to opt in, we can always better enact laws to control cannabis entities and their potential village locations, just like we do with other village businesses and zoning. Okay, you got it. And the last thing again is in 1995, the village of East Aurora successfully blocked a proposal by Walmart to locate a super center within the village limits. Here we are 26 years later. We see once again, there are some people who are looking out for their own self-interest instead of the interests of the entire community. These self-interests may be simple and understandable on the individual level, but however, like purchasing and consuming cannabis, however.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 29, Karen Lee.
Wait, this up and down is really hard. Okay. I'm not here to argue whether or not there should be cannabis dispensaries or lounges in East Aurora. That obviously is a matter of opinion. No, the question that this board should be considering, which is not subjective, is whether or not it is prudent to opt in at this time and put the village in a potentially litigious situation before having all the details
and legal information about what exactly our power to regulate potential problems will be after the fact. The residents of East Aurora are trusting you to seriously consider the implications of opting in at this time. That's what the word trustee means. And in light of some information that I came across over the weekend, as far as our legal rights, once we've opted in, I would expect the trustees to be at least as well informed on this as a resident before making this irreversible decision. It seems uncharacteristically rash of this board to opt in at this time when we have the opportunity to do our homework first, prepare for the eventuality of opting in if that's what the majority of the community wants, by drafting local laws and making proper zoning considerations beforehand. Because it seems to me that it was made clear to me in my research that our hands could be considerably tied in trying to regulate anything after the fact. This seems a clear case of putting the cart before the horse. I could never have imagined in a million years that this board would act so rashly as to put our village at legal risk when it's not necessary at this time. The state has given you the very reasonable opportunity to do your homework. The very fact that the state has structured the opt-in process this way speaks volumes about the state's realization that not everything is known at this time. The reason I didn't speak during the lounge portion last time was because I didn't want to waste your time and I thought it would be repetitive, but I was very confused by your subsequent vote. As you all know, I'm the Planning Commission Chair, and I can tell you from experience that it's so much harder to change something once it's been granted. I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff because I know I'm going to get booted.
Have to move on. The board really appreciates the input, but there are a lot of people who want to speak.
Do you actually think that we will have the power as a small municipality to prevail against the state and a cannabis lobby if there are problems after this happens? We couldn't prevail against the state dormitory authority over the internally lit sign at the middle school. I just ask you to make the right decision and take your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Gulo.
Emery Road, Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joe Gullo. I'm not a resident of the town. I'm a teacher at the Gauss School. Just listening, I guess there's 4 things I want to just add to this conversation. Number 1, I view the medical side of this and the recreational side of it 2 different ways. So right now I'm hearing that, the medical side is a legitimate concern for people, but I don't see an access issue. So I'm not sure why we're rushing to put dispensaries in place. Number 2, when people are coming up who are pro this particular activity are saying you might want to watch it with the lounges. They're kind of wishy-washy on it. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement in my mind. As a science teacher at the school and a residential dorm parent, I'm going to side with the other science teacher who spoke. You're 2 for 2 on science teachers who think this is bad for cognitive development with children. And I could go into that all day if you really want to, but I know that we were cutting people off. And the last part, which surprised me because I didn't know this is like a Hotel California situation where once you're in it, you're in it. And that I did not know. So I don't see a reason why we need to rush when you're in a situation where there isn't an access issue. People are actually pro this particular activity and saying might want to watch it with the lounges. Every teacher in the room right now has said this is a bad idea. And you can always decide to do this later. And I don't see why we're rushing it right now. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you listening to me.
Number 35, Colleen O'Connor.
Hello, Mayor, board members. I've lived in this town since I was 20 years old. I'm also a nurse. I have my bachelor's in nursing. I was a high school health teacher and a science teacher for over 20 years. And I have to say, that I am for marijuana dispensaries. For one thing, I think that there are a sizable number of people in town who are currently users of marijuana for both medicinal and recreational purposes. And these are husbands, parents, community volunteers, or even possibly board members, or have other roles within the community. And I haven't seen any issues with these people or with the functioning of our town at this point. I don't see a dispensary changing things that much. I've been in dispensaries in 3 other states. They're highly regulated. Everyone that enters has to turn over their license. There's a record made of it. I've never been in a dispensary that there has been more than 2 people, maybe 3 tops. So this is not something where people are going to be lining up. Okay, you know, there are people that have transportation issues in town. There's also the issues that the original speaker brought up. Our very first speaker, I thought, spoke very eloquently on the issue. I think Patrick Blizniak spoke very eloquently on the issue about, you know, being offered drugs from illicit people. So I'm not going to belabor those things, but even among professionals, there's a diversion of opinions on this. I just have to say, from my own point of view, I commend you for your decision.
Susan Gottsman, Glenridge. Susan?
Public speaking is the worst. Hello, my name is Susan Gottesman. I live at 186 Glenridge. I am a town resident, not a village. I have grown up here. My parents moved here before I was born, so we've been around East Aurora for about 45 years. Speaking to medical marijuana, cognitive impairment, that I do not like about it. Personally, I don't use it for that. It is pain management. It is the only thing that has managed bouts of pretty intense pain throughout my career, my lifetime. And I am a respiratory therapist, so of course I prefer people not to smoke it. But being able to have a dispensary in town is a unique opportunity to educate the public as far as the differences between all of the strains, what they can do. If you don't like the cognitive impairment, there are other things out there. It is a very unique opportunity to educate. I opt in for dispensaries. As far as otherwise the lounges, I don't really have an opinion. Thank you for your time.
Number 37, David Pelton, Church Street. David.
Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. I'm Dave Pelton. I live on Church Street. You guys have the unenviable task of making some hard decisions at this time, or so it would seem, but really there is not any reason to rush in. I think the decision should be to opt out of both for now. And I think one of the biggest reasons is because there's a lot of misinformation and confusion out there as to what you would really be buying into. And one of the number one things is the argument that we need this kind of ready access. However, of the 11 different types of marijuana licenses, you're considering only 2. These are only 2 that you can opt in or opt out. The other 9 marijuana licenses, you don't have control to opt out of those. That includes delivery services. People don't have to worry about getting up to Main Street or whatever. You can order it and have it come to your house. The only reason that I've heard someone say that they didn't think a delivery service would be satisfactory is because you then don't have the availability of a bud tender to go over what the options are. If you are someone that has tried marijuana a couple of times, you're going to know what you want after a little bit. Another service business that actually involves retail is a micro business, a micro cannabis business, which is similar to a micro distillery or a microbrewery where they will produce the products and sell them on site. You do not have the option of opting out of those, and they are going to come and they will be before you for a special use license, but you do not yet have any zoning restrictions or considerations for the hours of operation. The how, when, and where are important considerations that you don't have the facts for yet. Let's go ahead and put this off for a while, and then keep in mind that regardless of whether we ultimately opt in or out on the lounges and dispensaries, people are still going to have plenty of access. Thanks.
Thank you.
38, Caitlin Ullery, Stone Ridge.
Hello. So I'm actually surprised to be speaking tonight. I didn't actually plan to when I initially signed up. It seemed like there were going to be a lot of things said. But I did, after listening to a lot of the pros and cons and a lot of the information, I do want to point out that we should be paying attention to these studies as a medical professional. You know, quoting to me statistics when I don't have the actual data behind it is a little bit ridiculous. I can throw out at you any number, any percentage. If I don't have the actual information in front of you to show you how they got that information, what they were using, that's redundant. That doesn't really solve any problems. Number two, I am also a parent. My children are all under the age of 5, and I am not naive enough, even with my children this young, to realize I'm not going to have that marijuana discussion, whether we have a dispensary here or not. So that's really frustrating as a parent to think that it is on our location to stop us from having to parent our children. Having dispensary will hopefully cut down, as others have said, illicit selling of marijuana, which does lead to people being offered different drugs. As a healthcare professional, I can say that prior to it being legalized, we see marijuana in the hospital prior to this. This isn't going to change anything. It is obviously not the biggest thing. I would say alcohol is a much more damaging use than marijuana as a hospitalist provider. I don't really see many people admitted for marijuana. I see at least probably 25% of my patients are admitted for acute alcohol detox or liver failure requiring liver transplants. So if we're going to talk about a substance that's more damaging, it's already here. Alcohol is already here and we embrace it. I don't really understand why marijuana would really be that much different. If we control it, it's always better when we can control it rather than traveling a mile away from Cone King, setting up a dispensary here, bringing it back into the village. That seems a little ridiculous to me. Orchard Park didn't opt out. So it can be literally down the street from Cone King. We're not far away. So that's just my points. Thank you.
Elizabeth Morana, Buffalo Road. Elizabeth.
I'm completely against the opening of marijuana lounges in East Aurora. Where is our first concern? Is it the safety of people who live here? No, it doesn't sound like it. It is the opening of another place that will bring income into the village, both to shop owner and to the village tax coffer. Neither is a valid reason to invite people to go into a lounge where some will certainly overuse the drug, and then their driving cannot be as easily evaluated by a traffic policeman if irregularities are noticed. The level of alcohol is easily detected at the scene. Marijuana, not so. Agreeing to a marijuana lounge invites more people to come to East Aurora for a good time, one that may impair their driving without easy detection to protect pedestrians and other drivers. Why would we do that? Let's ask ourselves that question. And how will this affect the general feeling about this village to outsiders as well as to ourselves? How will this affect the children and young people in our community? What you do sets a precedent, and it affects our appearance both to ourselves and to the surrounding communities. I first moved here in 1953. I remember the village from then. Yes, there is progress, but the choice to allow marijuana lounges is not my idea of progress. Thank you for listening.
Number 40, 221 Gerard. Is that Grace? Sorry, 221 Gerard. Hi. Yep, Grace. Can you just spell your last name for me, please, Grace?
Gilbert.
Perfect, thank you.
I would just like to say, patience is a virtue. And I think what we should do, or you should do, or we should do, yes, is take more time, think this out before it gets out of hand. I am very well acquainted with the state of Washington. I've lived there for several years. My son is there, and I wish everybody could just see Seattle. It's not nice there anymore, and it won't be for quite some time. But we have a lot of people in this room right now that's put a lot of money into taxes to live in this beautiful community. And I know they want to keep it that way, and I don't blame them. So I think before we go any further, let's just put our heads together and give the community someone that can give out more information that they can digest. And at this point, they can't. There's not enough out there for the common people to digest. And we need someone with a lot of clout that can come here. And then let us discuss it and you people make the right decisions. Thank you for your time.
Number 41, Todd Bindig. Todd?
Sorry, slow mover with the knees. It's not the model year, it's the mileage. All right, my name is Todd Bindig. I've lived in East Aurora since 1980. I want to say thank you very much, Trustees Shear, for making the motion to have this conversation tonight. Thank you. I appreciate it. 2 minutes. The Aspen Times, you know, from that rock-ribbed conservative state, Colorado, who was the first in the nation to legalize recreational marijuana, reported on July 21st of this year that in 2013, the year before toking the herb was legal in Colorado, fatal traffic accidents attributed to someone who was under the influence of the ganja were 47 in their city. 5 years after recreational marijuana became legal, that number was 120, more than 2.5 times higher, no pun intended. If our village is one of the only places with a consumption lounge, it is reasonable to assume that people will come here from all over Western New York. Anyone remember the lines for our first Krispy Kreme on Niagara Falls Boulevard back in the late 90s? 4 hours wait for donuts that weren't even close to as good as Freddy's. People will be driving here. They will dance with Mary Jane and get very high. Then they will get in a car to go home. What do the previously mentioned statistics imply will happen next? You have a choice, and choices have consequences. You can listen to attorneys from New York City who have very recently come to our village and seem intent on radically changing it for whatever reason. Or you can listen to the parents and grandparents who have made this our home for decades.
I need you to wrap it up.
I'm almost done. Opt out of the consumption lounges. They can smoke all the weed they want at home, eat 15 bags of Doritos and giggle themselves to sleep watching Beavis and Butthead at home. Don't let this be what happens in public. The crazy needs to stop here and now. Just say no.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Linda Papil, Lewis Road.
Good evening. My name's Linda Popiel, 1768 Lewis Road, South Wales. I'm from England, but I'm American citizen too. I just want to say that I'm against the pop lounges, the consumption site, the concerned grandmother. I'm concerned for the children. And I want to ask a question, why has it been illegal to smoke marijuana all these years? And now suddenly it is. I don't think it's good for the children. I don't think it's good for them to, as a gateway drug. And I just want to say I'm against it. And I'd just say, you know, forever and don't, you know, thank you very much. And I just want to thank you.
Dr. Peach, 116 North Grove.
Hello. Okay, so here's the scoop. All right, no weed licenses until 2023. Okay, the New York Cannabis Board Chair actually disclosed recently that she doesn't even expect the agency to finish crafting the regulations or issuing licenses for 18 months. Once again, the chair of the New York Cannabis Board said 18 months just to write the policy. And she just said this 2 weeks ago. So I asked an attorney in Florida for information to look at all of the rules he could find in the state of New York so far. And his response was, I would advise the board at this time to wait until you have more information, because that's what an ethical attorney would do. They would advise their client to avoid signing anything that isn't finalized. I found a law firm that actually wrote some paperwork, some articles pertaining to the New York State Cannabis Act. In it, it specifically says local municipalities once opted in are preempted from adopting any laws, rules, or regulations referring to the operation or licensing of the adult use cannabis businesses. Preempted. The only thing you think you can actually pass here would be local laws pertaining to, local laws pertaining to your hours of operation, size, and potential location, with an asterisk from this saying unless the operation deems it unreasonable or impractical. At the very least, it says you can have the opportunity to weigh in on proposed licenses in our community. Weigh in. Why does it say weigh in? Because the OCM board is the one who finally ends up deciding whether or not they accept or deny it, not you. Okay, so let's recap. No rules and regulations for 18 months, no licenses or permits for 18 months, no legal recreational marijuana for 18 months. We opt in now. We are preempted by the rules that won't be finalized for how long? 18 months, okay? You can't even win a lawsuit against the middle school over an LED sign. Wait to know what you are signing first, opt out now.
All right, Jack Peach, 116 North Grove.
Hi, Jack Peach, 116 North Grove Street. Thank you. I'm against dispensaries and lounges. Two concerns. The final rules that govern marijuana dispensaries and lounges are not in place yet. If the village decides to opt in, we'll have to abide by the rules that they set in New York State. However, if we opt out, then we can wait for the rules to be passed and then take steps to change as they apply here in the village. Second point is an increase in marijuana-related traffic accidents and deaths. Research from the United States and Canada have discovered that the number of car crash deaths involving cannabis is skyrocketing in recent years. The odds of these deaths involving both cannabis and alcohol is even higher. Over a 19-year period, the study finds car crash death involving cannabis more than doubled across the United States, going from 9% in 2000 to 20% in 2018. The percentage of deaths involving drinking and marijuana rose from 5 to 10% during that time. The team from Boston Medical Center, Boston University, and University of Victoria adds that marijuana-related crash victims had a 50% higher chance of having alcohol in their system at the same time. And locally, 2 weeks ago, a Tonawanda man was arraigned in Erie County Court on an indictment and charging him with vehicular manslaughter while impaired by marijuana, killing a 54-year-old Carolyn Carter who was bicycling. Yes, it is legal to smoke and consume cannabis in the state, and driving while intoxicated is illegal. Why would we want to increase chances of a similar death year in and around the village. Please consider to opt out. Thank you.
Don Bona, Greenwood. Don Bona here. Who's in the other room? Do we know? While we're trying to see if she wants to speak. Did anybody come late and not get to sign up to speak but would like to? I'm sorry, nope, it was just 2 minutes per person, sorry. She had to leave, okay. All right. All right, can I get a motion to close our public hearing at 8:40, our two public hearings at 8:40 PM?
So moved.
Moved by, was it Kristen? Yeah. Moved by Kristen, second by Paul. For the discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Public hearings are closed. Moving on to official considerations. 6A. Can I get a motion to declare, approve a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker of a type 2 action for a local law amending the village code section 177 parks, prohibiting smoking of any kind in village parks?
So moved.
Moved by Ernie, second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. 6A, the neg deck for seeker for smoking in the parks has been approved. Moving on to 6B, we're gonna do a roll call vote. I get a motion to approve a local law amending the village code section 177 parks, prohibiting smoking of any kind in village parks.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second by Marcia. Further discussion on this?
So this doesn't apply to just Hamlin, right? It applies to sinking ponds and the little public parks by, for instance, Quickfill next to the traffic circle, any of the public place parks that are within the village.
The pocket park.
By the same token, the edges of the park might not be well defined, but to the extent that we've said, in general, things are allowed, tobacco smoking is allowed on public sidewalks, then you've got some discretionary capability on the edges of the park, presumably. People don't have to smoke in the park. They can go across the street and smoke on the sidewalk, and they still have the ability to take care of their tobacco habits or anything else.
Yeah. Other question? Okay. Any other discussion? All right, doing a roll call vote. Let's start with Kristen
Aye.
and Marcia
Aye.
and Paul
Aye.
and Ernie
Aye.
and Tony.
Aye.
I'm an aye. So 6B passes, local law amending, prohibiting smoking in any village park, any kind of village park is approved. All right. 6C. Can I get a motion to approve a local law for the village to opt out of retail dispensaries selling cannabis within the village limits? So moved. Moved by Ernie, second? Second by Marcia. Further discussion? Yes.
I think there would be further discussion.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. I mean, first, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I mean, we're at some of these board meetings and it's just us and the department heads and one person from the press. So to have this kind of community engagement really is fantastic. Yeah, if you want to come to every meeting, that'd be great too, but just seriously, thanks for caring enough about the community and your feelings on the community to come out here and speak. I know a lot of people, they have trouble, aren't that comfortable getting up in front of a group of strangers and speaking publicly. I think y'all did great. Thank you for that.
And the fact that everyone was so polite, it says a lot about our village, that we don't have this shouting match. People were respectful, and this is a good thing that I saw tonight, is how intelligent and the opinions people have and how respectful people were of each other's opinions. That counts for a lot as well, I think.
That's for sure.
We've seen it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on social media, yeah, but yeah, and really, I mean, I feel our family friendly, small town charm is what makes the village of East Aurora so unique. It's what makes us special. I always say we don't have ski slopes, we don't have a beachfront, right? We have our small town character and charm, and that's really the key. I personally, I don't think people say, oh, East Aurora is great, but it needs more weed. I think people just say East Aurora is great. And so I hate to mess with something that's working, you know. I do appreciate the safety issues though, with medicinal benefits for serious health issues for the dispensaries, and the tax benefits aside. I don't think the tax benefits are going to be so significant that we need to compromise, but I do see there could be a need there. I did vote for dispensaries last month for that reason. There's still a lot of unknowns, and the 18-month timeline, I think, weighs in on it too, but what are your thoughts?
Well, this is probably the hardest decision I've had to make, and it's because it's so evenly divided. I get a sense it's really almost 50-50, and I did my due diligence in talking to people in the community, and several people are sitting in the audience that I spoke to, and very difficult to decide something like this because you want to make the right decision for the future of the community. You know, having to put my own personal opinions aside as to how I feel about the use of marijuana, and then weighing all different, you know, people can grow it, people are growing it in their backyard. It's here, Orchard Park approved. When they get dispensaries 6 miles that way, you'll be able to purchase it, bring it home to East Aurora. You know, very difficult decision, but I'm trying to go with what the public wants, but I feel the general consensus is and what people want for their community. So, very difficult decision.
I think the thing that I think about is the difference between a legal market and the black market, because like on the black market, no, I recognize that they could be lacing marijuana with fentanyl or some other deadly drug. And I just feel a legal market would be a better reason because of that.
I think it's important to think about the fact that as a society, we have different tiers of laws, and we've got whole sections of laws talking about adult activities like gambling and alcohol, and this potentially falls into a similar kind of role. Same thing with pornography. Just because people may not be in favor of it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be creating laws, zoning, other special use permit limitations to try and control things. I think the challenge is always forcing ourselves to set a timeline and make some decisions. It's fairly typical for boards like this to say, let's do a 6-month moratorium, and then they add 3 more months on top of it and 3 more months on top of it. I think it's some value to say, let's start looking at things now. We started talking about this in July, and we made some progress. This group is obviously a good thing. We asked for more input, and we finally got some. I think it's important that we continue to ask kind of a group idea of what's going on. I think it's important that we support the police department to get training now because they've lost their canine dog capabilities. But Shane has said that there are programs available for training. If we need to do something additional for extra overtime for patrols because there's crime problem behind the theater, then we can look at doing that kind of additional budget issues if that's the problem, or hiring more people. But we need to take some action and not just keep kicking it down the road.
Well, we ought to provide the training, whether we approve or disapprove of dispensaries, because this is an issue right now.
Exactly.
We need to be providing support to the police for sure, for sure. I think one of the other things that we need to be looking now, this is probably further on to what you're saying with zoning. We don't have to make decisions right away, but we don't need to wait until we find out what other localities and municipalities are doing. We need to be looking and anticipating what kind of zoning changes we would need to make. I think we're hearing loud and clear that people are concerned about where a site of a dispensary may or may not be. And I think another thing we need to think about, whether we vote for or against, I mean, if we vote that we would allow dispensaries, doesn't mean that somebody's going to come here and set one up. I mean, it's opening it up an opportunity for an entrepreneur, but I don't think it necessarily guarantees that we're going to have a dispensary.
I do think it's important to set some expectations. So if we think that, for instance, a consumable lounge needs to end at 9 p.m. rather than with the bars running 11 or 1 o'clock in the morning, if we pass that law now, then it's something that people can look at and evaluate whether they want to move here or potentially start a business someplace else. Same thing with, for instance, issues of secondhand smoke. The good news is we've got the Clean Air Act. We've got a lot of research that was done with COVID ventilation. We can help control some of that by saying, here's specifications we need to have on consumable lounges, whether people are smoking or, as Paul has mentioned in the past, potentially also involved with the gummies and brownies and assorted other things beyond just smoking. I don't think we know enough about that part of it, but for the dispensary part of it, I think we've got a lot less of an issue, but we should be looking at it. We should be trying to make some decisions.
I think a lot of the audience, I think Mr. Peltan made some points that I had never thought about. There are some things that were said that I hadn't really thought about. And I was really on the fence. I've been chewing on this for a couple of weeks as to how I felt or which way I should go. And, you know, trying to juggle the feeling of, you know, I want people to be able to make their own choices. And you still can, even if we do opt out of dispensaries now, people can still grow it in their backyards. They can still travel to a town, West Seneca, Orchard Park, Silver Creek, where the Indian reservation, they have a drive-through there. You know, you can go, you can still purchase it, bring it home. And I know several people who are growing it in their gardens, and, you know, so you can still do it. It's legal in the state. You know, despite the fact I really don't think personally that dispensaries would be that big a problem, but I think it's worth stepping back sometimes and thinking about it. thinking about, the legalities of it. And I think Mr. Pelpan, you made some solid points I hadn't thought about. And then maybe, and just as Wilson Curry had said, 10 years from now, we'll all be looking at this saying, what's the big deal here? This isn't, I think time sometimes gives us the answer. And, I don't know, in fact, I was wondering, in retrospect, evaluating my own stance on this, I began to think to myself, what's the rush? We opt in, we're in, forever. So, maybe taking a couple steps back and thinking about it, people can still go to the dispensaries that are located in Cheektowaga or Orchard Park, the town of Orchard Park. They can still grow it in their gardens next to tomatoes, and it can be here and they can use it. So, it's a very difficult, decision, because I don't really think it's going to be that big a problem, but I also want to do what the community wants or what's right for the community down the road and not make the wrong decision that we're stuck with forever. It's that word forever that really has me concerned. And I mean, all day today, I was like, just wound up just thinking about this and making the right decision long-term. And that word forever kept popping up. If this is a forever decision, I want to make sure it's the right decision, right? Like getting married, you want to make sure you're marrying the right person because you want it to be right forever. And so, it's a tough decision, but on the other hand, maybe the benefit of time will give us the answer that we're
It's
looking
probably
for.
not unlike discussions for prohibition is how I feel about it. People had to wrestle with trying to anticipate and try to do the right thing for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's the morality end of it, which I don't think it's immoral to use it. It's not the root of all evil. It's not, I don't necessarily think it's the healthiest thing to use for some people, but it does have benefits for others. It's just trying to make the decision that's right for our community. Do we want this, do our constituents want this in their town or not? And if they don't, and it's here anyways. I mean, if people are growing in their backyards, it'll be here whether we have a dispensary or not.
It is here.
And it is here. I know it is. It's here.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's a little bit of pulling our heads out of the sand on this. This has been here. This has always been here. I was about as sheltered a kid as you could be. And I certainly knew who the kids were who smoked pot at school. I could have gotten it if I wanted it. I didn't, still don't, no interest. But this has been a reality for kids growing up here. Certainly my lifetime, probably long before that. Yeah, and that's, I think, zoning things I think are extremely important. One of the things it gets into in that whole 128-page law, if you read the whole thing, really quite a bit of entertainment. It gets into where you can, we've talked before about the 500-foot radius around a school and 200-foot radius around houses of worship. The advertising one is actually a lot more limited, where that gets into can't be readily observed within 500 feet of the perimeter of school grounds, playground, child daycare providers, public parks, library. I think facilities like that and places like the Boys and Girls Club are things that we would want to think about having that sort of distance going on.
Paul, you want to add anything?
I'm just listening. Like I said before, the big thing that I've been focusing on is that when we have a legal market, it's competing with the black market. So if we have a legal market, the marijuana that's sold in our area is less likely to be laced with fentanyl or some other.
All right, any other discussion? So we're gonna do roll call vote. Just to clarify, aye to this means no dispensary. Approving a local law for the village to opt out of cannabis dispensaries. So aye means no weed. Nay means weed. Okay? Well, we start at this end with Tony.
No weed,
Oh,
right
do we have a
now,
motion?
no weed in the, but eventually we could opt in. Yes, just to make it clarify, this is a permanent decision,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, Ernie and Marcia.
Yeah, Ernie made the motion and Marcia seconded it. So we'll start with Tony. Nay. And Ernie.
Aye.
It's okay. We know what's going on. We'll explain it to you. All right, so Tony, you said nay.
Correct.
So you're voting against opting out of dispensaries. Ernie, you voted aye.
Aye.
Kristen?
Nay.
Kristen votes nay. Marcia?
Nay.
Marcia votes nay. Paul?
Nay.
Paul votes nay. And I am going to vote, yeah, I'm gonna vote nay. So we are not opting out of retail dispensaries for cannabis. Motion to approve a local law for the village to opt out of consumption sites for cannabis within the village limits.
So moved.
Moved by Marcia, second by Tony. Further discussion. This is cannabis consumption sites. I feel there's still a lot we don't know. Personally, I don't want to give people another reason to come to East Aurora to party and maybe get high and then maybe drive over somebody. And it's something our police department has clearly said that they have trouble. There's not a lot of options as far as breathalyzers and telling who's impaired and who's not. Someone goes in, people come in from outside communities, smoke weed in one of these consumption sites in our village, and the risk is bad things could happen, and it's really hard for us to stop that. I just don't feel like we need to give them another reason to come here and party and cause problems.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to explain to the audience again about the ayes and nays from the previous vote? I think
Sure.
there was some
The
confusion
state,
as to what-
Cuomo in New York State set it up where everyone is automatically opted in unless the local municipality passes a law to opt out by the end of this year. So we are voting on local laws that would opt out of these cannabis issues. So the first one, 6C, was a local law to opt out of retail dispensaries selling cannabis. And we did not pass that, which means we are currently on schedule to be opted in by the end of the calendar year for retail dispensaries of cannabis. Now we're looking at whether or not we're going to opt out of consumption sites for cannabis within the village limits. And again, the vote needs to be aye to opt out of them, nay, and you're automatically opted in if we don't pass it.
I tend to agree with you on the safety issues. I think not to sort of belabor it and repeat everything since we didn't let other people do that. But yeah, I think the driving is especially a big thing. I think we've gotten a ton of negative feedback on this here and in the emails who made a lot of really good points on not jumping into this one right now.
Much as I'd like to believe that there'd be lots of horse-drawn trolleys to take people back and forth, or Ubers or stuff like that, the reality is we don't see that now with other things. So to that extent, concerns about safety is an issue, I think. I think that there's also some open issues in my mind about how we deal with non-smokable versions. I'm not sure where that's going, but I imagine that's something that probably needs a little more guidance from state level. So those are some of my initial reactions.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like, I don't think we need to have something that's gonna attract a bunch of people. And I mean, I can't even imagine, so people come and consume, how are they gonna get them to leave? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the only other point that I wanted to reinforce is the fact that other states do have good laws that we should consider about things like, how do you protect the servers, right? So you got to have a smoking area and a non-smoking area so that people don't get secondhand highs. And those are things that we can either study and try and propose our own version or adopt somebody else's. I don't think we should let it go, because again, even if we don't opt in right now, it's probably going to be something we need to think about, and it's better to be a little proactive there.
Any other discussion? All right, moved by Marcia, seconded by Tony. This is a roll call vote on whether or not to approve, on whether we're going to be approving a local law for the village to opt out of consumption sites for cannabis within the village limits. So again, if you vote aye to this, you're voting to opt out of consumption sites. If you vote nay, then you're allowing consumption sites to happen. So starting with Tony.
Aye.
Ernie?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Marcia?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Local law passes. We've approved it to opt out of consumption sites on cannabis within the village limits. 6E. Sure. I'll give you a second for folks who want to filter out.
If you want to stick around, you're certainly welcome. Yeah, I did a lot. Yeah, well.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, you were having fun. I was. Yeah. Yeah. All right, folks, if you're not going to stay for the rest of the meeting, we're going to continue. All right. We got a lot more meeting to go, so. If you want to work your way outside, continue on your conversations, we appreciate it.
Now, this looks like a normal meeting right here.
Yeah.
It's still more popular.
Even this is
isn't
pretty
bad.
good.
More like it right
Pretty
here.
good turnout.
I gotta say,
Yeah.
it's a little disappointing, it's like I know people get passionate about certain topics, and we've also heard a lot of people say they didn't know about things. It's like, I just wish that more people would get involved and participate and come and speak. It's disappointing.
It's a big issue. A lot of people felt passionate about too, though. People come out for the big issues.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
to
it's
Kristen's
not
point
fun.
last week, last meeting, we really need to do a better job of getting the word out when there is going to be a big issue, so people can all be in on the front end of it. So we're
I do
working on
think we
that.
tried pretty hard. We did, as Tony said earlier, we started this in July.
Right.
It's been going on for a while.
Yeah, but enough people, to your point,
Oh, yeah,
enough people said, I didn't know about it, that
Right, so
clearly we
there's
need
a
to do
disconnect
something
somewhere.
different.
there is.
Yeah, so we're working on some ideas
Maybe
now.
we've got to put an LED sign out. in front of the
Yeah,
building.
that's it.
Upcoming vote.
The big light up sign.
Let's spin around, have some name say, like in my school, welcome to fall, in the falling leaf, like I didn't know it was fall.
You said I could do anything I wanted.
All right,
Well, Dan, please, if anybody has ideas, we're all ears.
all right, so
Great.
6E. Then I get a motion to refer to the Historic Preservation Commission for the December 8th meeting, a request for demolition permit for 203 Main Street.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Kristen, second by Marcia. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. F, can I get a motion to set a public hearing on December 6th to consider a minor subdivision for 363 Prospect Avenue?
So moved.
Moved by Tony, second.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to adopt the fund balance policy as Maureen has outlined?
So
Moved by Marcia, second.
Second.
Second by Kristen. Want to give us the highlights?
It's pretty much what Carlton did before, just gives a little bit more to anything emergent departments might need for consideration. And then it is 45 to 50% of our expenditures per year, which is roughly a $4 million fund balance, which is what we have maintained for the last 3 years. So I feel like that's a good amount of money based on the fact that we don't get a lot of our income until after January because of our contracts for police and fire. And we need to have that for cash flow.
All right, moved by Marcia, second by Kristen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to approve the budget modifications as listed in the agenda?
moved.
Moved by Marcia, second.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to approve the fire apparatus reserve increase?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second by Kristen. Further discussion?
I like the idea of planning ahead and building up, money so that we don't have to necessarily go out to bond.
We won't have to bond it, which is great.
Right. Saves us a lot of money.
Nice.
Or at least we'll be able to put a nice dent in it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think set aside the money in these funds that can only be used for these things, I think is good long-term vision. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to approve the budget adjustments?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second.
Second.
Second by Tony. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to advertise for bids for a new police vehicle?
So moved.
Moved by Marcia, second.
Second.
Second by Kristen. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to approve a resolution for the return of unpaid taxes?
So moved.
Moved by Ernie, second.
Second.
Second by Paul. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. I get a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the eco software agreement for tracking fuel at the DPW pumps.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second.
Second.
Second by Kristen. Further discussion? Matt or Maureen, you want to just give us a little quick highlight on that?
Fuel system that we have right now. And this is going to update everything to a cloud-based fuel system for tracking.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. I get a motion to approve a change order number 1 for the Tannery Brook Culvert Replacement Project, closing out the construction agreement for $239.96 under the amount of the original contract.
So moved.
Moved by Kristen, second. Marcia, further discussion? Kathy, you want to give us any?
under.
Yeah. Want to give us any color commentary on that?
It's really just
We can hear you.
self-explanatory. We were under budget and actually ahead of schedule and under budget on the entire project. So this will close out. I think there still might be a couple very tiny punch list things to be done, but it's essentially all done and people are using the lot. The fence is up over there now. And very, very pleased with how it turned out with our engineer and our construction contractor and all of the businesses, especially the business owners and people in the area, were so helpful and patient while they got that.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you. Still gonna get a light. That's the slowest thing. Getting that.
Be nice to have the back of the lot lit though, especially in the winter. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to declare DPW equipment as surplus property?
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second. Second by Marcia. Further discussion?
I think it's important to note that we're not selling it for scrap, we're trading it in and getting a very good value on these things. It's a process we've gone through a number of years. Seems to be very fiscally prudent.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Can I get a motion to cancel the village board meeting for January 3rd, 2022? Moved by Marcia, second.
Second.
Second by Kristen. Further discussion? Maureen, you want to explain?
But because of the holiday, we really don't get a lot in that time period yearly. So basically, we kind of look to see where it falls to see if it's worth it to have the meeting. Because the holiday is really right in there, we don't usually get much. And I'm on vacation and I'm the one who makes the agenda and all the.
Oh, by the way. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. You're welcome. I was just gonna add Q on here. The December 6th Monday night game is also the Monday night Bills game against New England at home. I assume some people will be going to it or watching it. Does the board have any ideas on maybe tweaking that to make it a little easier for folks to enjoy the Bills if they pound New England?
Don't let's knock on all the wood.
We can move it to a different night. We can move it up to 6 and keep the agenda lean. What do you think?
I propose, let's move it to Tuesday. The 17th, right?
Okay. All right, so earlier in the agenda, Chris just reminded me, early in the agenda, we scheduled a public hearing for December 6th.
Okay.
What was that hearing for?
The 363 prospect.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's move it earlier and keep it on the 6th.
Yeah.
It worked the last time.
It did, yeah.
6 o'clock
Yep.
or earlier than that?
I think six is about as early as we can push it, I think.
I can do so.
and give everybody time to get out of work and
We
get
don't
here.
have to do a motion on that. All right. All right, so December 6th, we'll do it, we'll have the meeting at 6 PM start. Please publicize it accordingly. All right, second, speakers and communications. Does anybody want to talk about any issues?
Catherine Boucher, 331 North Street. I just want to tell you all, I'm very thankful for all of your time and effort put in. These public hearings, I know you all were bombarded a lot. Maureen probably got way too many emails, and I really appreciate all of your time and effort that went into this. And I thank all of you. Oh, Catherine Vijay, Biger, 331 North Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
I'm being joined.
Okay, I'm taking my hat off from town employee. I'm here as a resident, Liz Cassidy, 357 South Park Place. This is Joe, my husband. I'm here as a former board president for the Aurora Players and a longtime supporter, Bill, or I'm sorry, not Bill. That was my work husband, Joe. Joe is also a former board member. Damn it. Yeah, who was here earlier today. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you very much for including the Aurora Players Pavilion, well, what you call the Aurora Players Pavilion, which is actually the Roycroft Pavilion roof replacement. This has been a project that's been on our radar, Matt Hay's radar. The DPW and Matt Hay have been great. Previous boards have been great in getting the immediate needs taken care of with the roof, but we've talked for 10 years or more about the need for the total replacement of that roof. So we appreciate that funding. We appreciate the roof tear off, and we're looking forward to being continued good stewards of your building. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, you know, we can appreciate the expense and that it wasn't easy to find an opportunity to do this. And we also appreciate how fortunate we are to have that building, not only as a nonprofit organization, but also as a community, so that we can provide that service to the community. So we really want to thank the board and the administration and Matt and his team as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for saying so. I mean, it's a wonderful institution to have in the village, and I think Matt's been doing his best to try and cobble it together this whole time. I know we've been invited in to see the wiring that's been chewed on and the costume room that had the leaks in it. So yeah, it'll be a great improvement. Thank you for acknowledging that. All right, any other public comment before we leave second, speakers and communications? Sir.
Don Vidler, 115 Geneva. And it just occurred to me with the thank yous. I don't know if it was Matt or Kathy, but you guys, I think, increased the round of picking up the trash. It seems like twice a week now. Thanks. It makes a huge difference. I mean, behind the store, in front of the store, and it's very noticeable. I just wanted to say that and put on the public record. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Don. Any other public speakers? Anybody else? All right. Moving on to department head report. Shane?
Just as I put out my report today, we just interviewed a round of candidates for the next two police officer positions. We're currently doing background checks on two individuals. One is a certified police officer, so they would be able to start right away if they make it through the background and psychological investigations. The other candidate would need to go to the police academy, which the next one starts January 17th. So my plan would be hoping that background checks will be done in the next week or two. That one of the meetings in December, both candidates would be in front of you for appointment. One the beginning of January, and then one starting as the academy started January 17th. That would bring us back up to 17 where we're supposed to be at. And then things will be able to start moving along. And at that point, once we get those candidates up and running and on their own, which the second candidate will be a while, probably sometime in September or October of next year. And then we'll start looking at drug recognition schools and sending, I would hope, at least 2 candidates to those schoolings. And then we'll discuss that more at budget time because, like I said, it's not inexpensive. They do have to go out of town for a minimum of 2 weeks, depending on where the school's held, possibly up to 4 weeks, which means hotel, lodging, meals, and all that good stuff that comes along with that. So we'll discuss that down the road.
Thank you, Shannon. Congratulations for getting the department up to full steam. That's been a long, long time.
It seems like it's been forever. And I think I just hired or will be hiring, the next 2 candidates will be 10 positions I've hired in the last 6 years, which is
That sounds about right.
in a 17-man department. So it's been a long year and a half or so.
But thanks for being thorough. You want to do a good job, obviously. You stuck with them, so you want to get it right. So we appreciate you taking your time and getting it right. Roger?
Sure. I'd like to thank the board for planning into the future.
Good, thanks, Roger. I think I speak for everybody when I say the community really appreciates the time and sacrifice and risk that you and your members do for free. I mean, you know, we do this and it's almost free, but it's nothing like what you and your team do. You guys train consistently. You're there to save our bacon when we're in trouble. You guys put yourself in harm's way as volunteers for the community. And I just think that everybody really appreciates you.
We love doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Matt Hay?
We are still picking up leaves and will continue to do so as long as the weather permits.
Thank you, Matt. I saw you guys came by like every other day almost, getting the leaves in the neighborhood, and I'd see you go by and then the neighbor would run out and dump some more out, and then you guys got it pretty quickly. So, I mean, you're really covering a lot of ground. Appreciate it. Liz?
Oh, nothing tonight, thank you.
Good on the code side, thank you. Kathy?
Yeah, I just, obviously we've been very busy with everything and meeting stuff. I want to come back more meeting and all the crew and everybody. And thank Nick, our IT person in our other room. We did a lot of effort to put this together. We did expect a large crowd. We could get it. We were able to accommodate it, so that was very important. I did want to address what Trustee Zadi said about what, you know, I don't like to sit on anything ever myself either, as far as drawing things out and needlessly. We had the flag lot moratorium that didn't last for any amount of time. We did end up having that, and we did that right away. I expect we're gonna move on this too. I did send out you all out a note, you all saw it last week, about the fact that a lot of things on the zoning are not settled. So, I mean, we could do something really quick, but it might not end up being correct in the end. And I did let you all know that there's a training that NICOM is going to be doing on zoning for cannabis in December, so that's coming right up. I got that directly from Wade, who's the cannabis expert at NICOM as far as these go. So obviously, I'm going to be attending that. I will let you all know when that's going on. And Chris, probably Bob, everybody is interested in it. So we'll let everybody know when it is going on. There's been other items, some relatively small that we have identified in our code. We just found one of our special use permit as far as some of those requirements, just having to do with when it is required and contradictory to what might be in our code. Right? Same thing with smoking in the park. We just have to find that that's not there. So we do like to act on these things, find them and act on them and have them do that. So, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Maureen?
I want to be thankful for the technology equipment we're getting for our office with that budget modification. We really need it. I know my staff is going to be very happy because they use it way more than I do. And I also want to be appreciative of the fact that every board member came in to talk and meet with me and to go over the financials to understand why we're doing the fund balance policy the way we're doing it and how to spend the money that we had to spend. I think that it was a very big deal that you guys really didn't do necessarily a big and shiny thing and took care of a lot of little things that the village needed and will save the taxpayers on our next budget, because otherwise those items would have had to have gone in the budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. All right, Paul, anything?
No, I'm all set.
Marcia?
Yeah, last week, the Historic Preservation Committee hosted a discussion and a presentation at the bank about getting historic, what it would be involved for some of our businesses if they wanted to have their facility get a historic preservation designation. And it was very informative, and I think people learned a lot. And on top of that, many people got to finally tour the newly renovated bank facility, and it was lovely. And so it'll be interesting. It's a possibility that in the future, there may be some sort of movement to try to have some section of Main Street designated as a historic district. I don't know. It's out there for consideration.
Kristen?
All set tonight, thank you.
All right, Ernie?
Also,
Tony?
Just a couple quick things. In case you didn't see it, the town dog department is going around the village doing a census starting at the end of the month. So if your dog is not registered, do it now, or you're going to pay an extra $5 a piece for it when they come and knock on your door. Second thing is that I appreciate the work that DPW did. We talked last meeting about adding more garbage cans on Main Street. I see that was done. Third thing, I don't know if people are aware of it, but today the county executive talks about the fact that the hospitals are having a big increase in the number of COVID patients. So we need to be very careful about exposure. The rate of transmission last week, actually since Halloween, has increased dramatically to almost 10%. The hospitals in Erie County, as well as Monroe County and surrounding counties, in some cases are over 100% capacity. So it's important that you think about where you're using masks and maintaining social distancing. That's it for me.
True. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, what Tony says is spot on. I was on a call with Mark Poloncarz a few days ago and on Friday, and he did say that the bed utilization in Erie County, I think, is between 86 and 92% full. So it just blows my mind with people who've had it and gotten vaccinated that we still can see that kind of a peak. It almost, I feel like it kind of sneaks up on us. But you know, my whole family got vaccinated, and in between February and April, and then all 5 of us got COVID all at once 2 months ago. We didn't even know it until one of my kids went and got tested when they went off to college. It was required for them to get tested. And she called and she's like, "I can't believe it, I'm positive." We're like, "It's got to be a mistake." Because she wasn't sick or anything, and we all got tested. The rest of the family did. I had the same light symptoms, but even with the vaccine, it's possible. It's easy to get a booster. You got to keep wearing your masks. It still is an issue. It's obviously a bigger issue for people unvaccinated. So I'd like to continue to encourage them to do it. We hate to see the hospitals get in a jam where they can't take care of people who need medical help. So please stay on top of that. It's still important. Also, the Holiday Decoration Committee has completed their work officially today. Matt, thank you so much for all the help the DPW provided. Sandy Romer from over at Stonegate, some of her friends did yeoman's work. They were there for a couple of weeks, going over the DPW barn and working on the wreaths and the garland and all the other things it takes to make the village look beautiful. I went over there for a day. We got some Girl Scouts and their parents and some local high school boys came out, and a bunch of volunteers showed up, and we were able to knock out a lot of it. So it's all those little things that go into making the village as beautiful and sweet and charming as it is. So let's just remember all the hard work the volunteers do. With that, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Marcia, second by Tony at 9:35 PM. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming tonight.